you had like a scary thump in the night. Like, is tomorrow home? Like, I didn't mean to scare everybody. I
don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, everybody, welcome.
It's your week.
I know.
You introduced.
I know. Yeah. I'm doing it. Welcome, everybody, to another week of Case Files with Kat
and Ashley.
So listen, I sound terrible tonight, and so please just bear with me, everybody at home. I was like, if NPR can have their sick correspondents on and they're like all hoarse, I can do this.
You sound fine to me so far.
Really? Because in my head, I sound like Kathleen Turner.
You sound fine so far. I mean, I don't know.
It'll get worse, I think. Yeah, I just to give everybody an update, I am a bit under the weather, which never happens. I never get even a cold. So this is all very, very weird. I did go and get a COVID test yesterday. I still have not gotten the results. So I know they were very, very busy. And so this was at the UTMB urgent care, and there were more children in there than adults.
Well, I'm sure with school about to start.
Yeah, and they were sick. These kids were all like,
yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. So I sat super far away, and I was like, because if I don't have it,
if you didn't have it before,
I double masked up because I was like, you know what? I don't feel horrible, but I never get sick, and I don't want to go to Toastmasters on Friday because I want to have like proof that I do not have it. But because nobody wants to be in a room with somebody sneezing or like even doing that. Yeah. Like every sneeze, every cough, you feel really weird. Like, so I have been staying home out of caution, but working from home still. And so, but the kids are on their last 2 weeks of summer, and they are in quarantine because at their summer camp, kids in their camp classes got COVID, and they were in direct contact with them, and so they are on 2 weeks of quarantine. So this house it's like it's a horror house right now. It's terrible.
Oh man,
we had to go out and buy another iPad.
Wow.
Yay. Yay. How has your week been though? Because it's got to be better.
Well, it's just been busy catching up still on stuff since, like my trip and everything, and then all the chamber things we've had going on, and, just still dealing with the house situation because that's a never ending fun times. And now my mom's house is flooded in Utah, so that's fun there. For those of you that don't know, Utah had freak flooding.
What?
Yeah, they had like sudden flooding. Like they don't ever get thunderstorms like that. And then like Salt Lake City flooded, where she lives flooded. That came in through like their back windows. Yeah, so she's like in a hotel somewhere now. So that's been that's fun.
Yeah, and my story tonight takes place in Utah, but the other thing is like both of your homes, like this is just very I hate that.
Yeah, fun times. It's great. It's wonderful. Life is grand. Great. Yeah, they're saying my house won't be done until like October, November, somewhere around there. My mom's house wasn't as bad, I don't think. Like, I think they'll be able to get it cleaned up and moved back in and stuff.
Just for a point of reference for Ashley, everybody, the freeze was in February. And so November, she'll get to move back in. So good, solid.
Yep.
10 months, no big deal. And then your mom's, when did that happen? It sounded like I had puberty right there.
2 days ago.
Oh my gosh.
I guess by the time this comes out, it'd be like two days ago. Yeah.
Susan, thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers.
Everything is just,
everything is awesome.
Being an adult is great.
Okay, so speaking of adulting, I'm just going to go ahead and get into the question of the week because nobody needs to hear any more of our blither blabber. But you wait. Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to ask you the question of the week, and then you have to talk about that huge beer that you have because it's beautiful, because it looks like Art Deco. So let me ask you the question of the week first. Okay, so go. I was actually in the midst of my guilty pleasure. So my question to you is, what is your guilty pleasure? What do you do to relax or unwind that others may think is odd? Aside from,
well, I don't know that other people find it odd. I found a lot of people say the same thing. First of all, I do this podcast. A. B. I drink a lot. And C. I also play a lot of Minecraft. I play it on my Xbox. I play it on my phone. A lot of people think it's like a simple game or a stupid game or a game for children, but I love it. It's very mind numbing and relaxing, and it helps me kind of forget about things for a while. And I like to build stuff. I like to design stuff. So anyways, I do a lot of that. And then probably my worst guilty pleasure is TikTok. I'm on that shit all day, all the time. Sarah and I, we just share videos like nonstop. She sends them during normal hours, but I can't ever sleep. So I'm always sending her videos I find at like 3 a.m. I've recently made 2 of my dog. She's semi-famous now. She's had 1,000 views. You could say she's
more famous than we are.
You know, what can I say? She's a dog. Probably the only 2 videos I'll ever make. But anyways, yeah. So those are my guilty pleasures. True crime, drinking, Minecraft, TikTok.
I love that. I've actually downloaded the TikTok app. I have a TikTok now. So feel free.
You're never gonna have a life.
Feel free to pass videos along.
I will.
I have learned,
if you are not on TikTok, it is very addicting. You think it's stupid. You see the Facebook ads. It's not like that at all. It's very addicting.
So I have a friend who takes very, very, very poor advice to heart. She actually, does like the eyebrow shaping things and then ends up like Groucho Marx. It's, we've all told her to just go ahead and delete the app. Stop it. You're making poor life decisions. But because of work, I decided well, maybe I need to try it out and see what's going on. I need to see what's going on. What are the kids doing?
I have found a lot of recipes on there, a lot of makeup hacks that I didn't know about on there. I've actually found a lot of good stuff on there. I mean, I found a lot of true crime stuff on there that I just find fascinating. So you just have to be smart about which trends you follow,
I get it. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys still use some common sense.
I mean, it's been a social media. How much common sense? Okay, so my guilty pleasures are, of course, true crime. I do this podcast, but the other things that I think that even though I don't know anything about makeup, I do like to watch the makeup videos, but not like people teaching you how to do makeup. I like looking at the people reacting to the people. I don't even know who they are. I don't know their names or anything, but some of them I think are really funny. And it's not, they're but they're actually legit. They know what they're talking about. So they'll stop people and go, don't put bronzer in the baby oil to go out and get a tan. What you're doing is basically just cooking yourself. And it's thank you. But for some reason, to me, that's funny. And I'm oh, it's, and then it's here's how you do the contouring, which I don't know how to do. I'll watch the videos, but I don't know anything about it. I don't have the brushes. I don't have the right product.
I like watching the people on TikTok that do like the crazy transformations, not just like makeup, but like the costumes and like crazy designs and stuff. I love it.
So that's my other guilty pleasure. So we love to watch like Face Off, Glow Up, all those, any of those shows about actual makeup artistry and visual effects artistry. We love all of those kinds of shows. I mean, I will watch a whole season and like just sit down and we'll just watch the whole season. I'm really into that. I think that kind of creativity on the fly is just amazing. Like, hands down, love it. But then the other guilty pleasure is watching something like Hoarders, which I can only do by myself, and because Jason will not watch it with me. But I really, those kinds, it started off with Hoarders and Intervention. And if it's about how fucked up your life is, I'm probably going to watch it.
I watch a lot of
because I don't know if I identify or I don't know what. And then my last guilty pleasure is being by myself and it being very quiet. Just if I'm home by myself, like I don't put on the music. I don't do like, I just for a little while, I just let it be really quiet and I enjoy that because it doesn't last very long. And then I get up and I have to do shit. So then I put on the TV while I'm doing laundry or whatever. But for that moment, and that's a little bit of a guilty pleasure because, you have to, you don't get that a lot. And so I don't mean it to sound like I don't appreciate my family, but it's like just that quiet shh.
Yeah.
Is magical. It's magical. So I'm sure the moms out there feel me. Yeah, feel me. Okay. All right. I'm going to get into my story. I sound terrible. I feel terrible and I sound terrible in my brain. You may not hear a difference, but in my brain I do. So tonight I'm just going to get into my story. I didn't think of any, I didn't want to do any trivia because I wasn't sure how long my voice would last tonight.
That's good.
So, this ended up being a story that when I started to research it, I was like, oh, it's probably not long enough for a full episode. But what ended up happening is well, tonight I'm going to talk about two stories that I didn't initially realize were connected at all. But lo and behold, they are. And yes.
I felt like there was 7 million links in your resources.
There are 7 million links in my resources. Okay, so the first story is the Starck, S-T-R-A-C-K, Starck family familicide. And I had heard about the Starck family, and I immediately thought, like, okay, I would know the story. And that's why, like, well, I'll put it down in the notes. Like, this is something that was really, really very interesting. I thought I would know it. We've sort of had similar, maybe not similar stories, but we'd all be able to kind of guess. Would you guess maybe the man was abusive? There may have been drugs involved. They were really broke, right? The entire family is dead, and that's done. Like that's the story. But as I did more research, I realized that the Starck family did not meet all of those usual requirements in my brain. Like, was this a familicide? Absolutely, yes. Yes, it was. Like, yes, absolutely. But the backstory, how they got there, does not match up with what we may all know. Like all those huge red flags. Those aren't really there. Those aren't a part of their story at all. And so let me just get started. But we'll start with the Starck family. So I'll begin with what we know. Let me wet my whistle. Sorry.
While you're doing that, I am drinking.
I forget.
Since you mentioned it earlier, I wasn't going to talk about it, but you mentioned it earlier. So in case people were wondering. I'm drinking lager beer. It's from Equal Parts, which used to be Sigma. It's in Houston. They brew it in the Second Ward. It's a German-style Pilsner. It is delicious. It is refreshing. It is one of my favorite beers from them. The can art is super cool. I love their can art on everything. It's just a bunch of like, this one's just like a basic crazy design, but I love their can art. And as a side note, everyone, I did try one of their IPAs this weekend, and I actually enjoyed it. It was really good. Yes, Kevin, yes. So anyways, I just thought I would throw that out there that I did try, and I did enjoy one of their IPAs.
Today is August 4th, 2021, and Ashley has admitted to liking an IPA. One. That's
one IPA.
That's okay.
That's all it takes. But yes, so anyways, if you guys are in the Houston area or ever go to the Houston area, I highly recommend Equal Parts. They finally reopened their inside. They've totally redesigned it. It's beautiful in there. It's lots of plants, lots of open space, lots of distancing. It's really nice in there, and they have lots of their beers to go. You can go in, grab it, and get out.
And that can art, y'all, is beautiful. Very Art Deco, very like Great Gatsby, like black with the gold outlines. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. So I'm drinking, I should probably tell you, it's out of San Diego, West Coast IPA, it's called, but Green Flash Brewing. And I wasn't sure. I have seen this, and I wasn't sure if I would like it. Look at that little PCH right there. I wasn't sure I would like it, but it is delightful. And so even with my inability to like inhale right now, it still tastes very good.
Yeah.
So there's one thing. I still have my smell and taste. I still can smell things. So there you go. Thank goodness. All right. Okay. So back to the old familicide. All right. Okay. So here's what we know for sure happened. On September 27th in 2014, a 19-year-old and his fiance arrived at his mom and stepdad's house to find it eerily quiet. A house he knew shouldn't be quiet because he had 3 younger half-siblings, ages 14, 12, and 11. He knew both of his parents were home, and he did not hear a thing. As he walked through the house looking for someone, he got to his parents' door. He tried to open it and could not. So he called his grandmother, and she brought a friend. They managed to get the door open. "Oh my God," Family Marine Ledbetter told a 911 dispatcher as the grandmother screamed in the background. The whole family killed themselves. Inside the bedroom were Benjamin, who was 37, and 36-year-old Christy Starck, and the children, Benson, 14, Emery, 12, and Zion, 11, were found lying on and around the bed, covered in blankets up to their necks. There were empty containers of cold and flu medication, allergy medication, sleeping medication, pain reliever, and cherry-flavored liquid methadone. And they found a plastic sand pail filled with a lethal yellowish-orange concoction, a mixture of the drugs. It is still unclear how the children consumed the cocktail. The parents' deaths, Benjamin and Christy, they were listed as suicides, and the 2 youngest children's deaths were ruled homicides because they were too young to consent to die. But the death of their 14-year-old son, Benson, was labeled undetermined. So in a news release, the Springville, Utah PD said that because of his age, it is unclear if he was capable of choosing to die or not.
I don't feel like.
Well, it is believed that Benjamin was the last to die from a lethal amount of heroin found in his system because Christy and the youngest, Zion, were under the covers while Benjamin laid between them on top of the covers. and his leg and his arm were draped over Christy. This is what is not normal. There were no signs of struggle, and no one put up a fight. There was no suicide note, nothing to give the family members or friends any clues as to what was on their minds. There was, however, a note that was written by their eldest son, Benson, to a friend of his. And in it, he made mention that he may be found dead soon, and he was leaving his most cherished possessions to him. He seemed to know something was about to happen, but there was no cry for help. This was just a matter of leaving his things to his friends.
This was the 14-year-old,
Yes.
right?
So this is probably why they can't say whether he chose to die with his family or not. On one hand, he doesn't seem all that worried about it via this letter. But on the other hand, he's 14, right? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I mean, he could have been forced to write it, you know, like if his parents said, hey, this is what's happening, like they could have forced him to write it.
Do you think, though, a 14-year-old can decide for themselves if they want to die?
I mean, I feel like a 14-year-old can be heavily influenced by their parents, and it depends on how they were brought up. I mean, at 14, I wouldn't have done anything I was told, but, you know, there are some people who are just brought up differently. They're brought up to listen to everything their parents say and do what their parents say, and, you know, I could see it, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think I think as a 14-year-old, he probably felt like he didn't have a choice, or like if his whole family was gone, he didn't want to be here. Who knows what was going on? You know what I mean? But I don't think consciously a 14-year-old can be like, well, my whole family's going to die. What should I, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not an expert, but I just feel like it's a weird situation that he would know that that was going to happen. And instead of telling somebody, he would just write a note to his friends. I feel like that is something that would have been, you know, encouraged by his parents or something.
The funny thing is, today I did a suicide prevention training, and this happened to be for work. And it was from the QPR Institute, which is question, persuade, refer, and it helps people have like to sort of look at suicide prevention like CPR, like everybody can do it, right?
Yeah.
So you just question if somebody says something or somebody does something that makes you kind of go, what, like it should trigger some red flags. And one of them is sort of leave, what is that term, like loose ends? Tying up loose ends, leaving things for people, giving away your most prized possessions. And one of the examples that she gave, I wanted to talk about this story so bad, but one of the examples that this woman, this trainer gave was at her job, one of the things that someone gave, one of the children gave, like a teenager, gave her passwords to all of her social media accounts to a friend of hers. And that friend had the mind to go, that's not right, and went and told somebody who then got in the middle of that, and then who prevented that suicide, and was like that small little cry for help was enough to change the course for this young woman. And she said, you know, for kids especially, they don't have possessions. So even something like the one thing that she can control, which was her social media account, which I thought was really interesting, you know, because suicidal ideation obviously can come at any age, that we've seen all of that. But for me, like you said, like if some kids, if he was being told this is what's going to happen, and he was just going to do whatever his family said.
Yeah, because, I mean, I assume, since you haven't said it yet, or maybe you'll talk about it later, we don't know, like, you know, in cults, you see it all the time. They're just brought up to believe a certain thing, and that's how it is, and they just believe it. And so your parents are telling you that this is happening, and, you know, who knows? Like, That's like with the kids in that one story where their parents went crazy on the farm and they all took off, they all believed someone was after them, even though it was just the parents. So, I mean, I think at 14, again, unless he was being like harassed and bullied and stuff, so you know what I mean? Like it was the whole, I feel like his parents definitely encouraged that.
Yeah. So, okay, well, we digress. So as the investigation into this horrific, I just can't even imagine, into this horrific incident began to take place, there were times the family might have had a sense of something about to happen. But the idea of all of them dying, nope. Never. That was never something that came to mind. That was not anything any of them could have ever imagined. And like we were just talking about, there are signs that maybe they just weren't paying attention to, and maybe that's the conversation, the great, that we can have as a society. One of the things they found was just a to-do list, but it wasn't like it said, find 5 grave sites for all of us. It wasn't anything like that. It was the list looked as if the parents were readying to go on vacation. Some of the items were feed the pets, find someone to watch after the house. And like those were things to be checked off. The
pets weren't dead, were they?
No. They spoke of leaving this evil world. But I guess that wasn't clear to their family, like what that meant. I mean, who could imagine that? So there isn't much to go on. A lot of them felt, and this, I'll say this in a bit, a lot of them felt like leave this evil world to them meant like getting off the grid, not being a part of society in the way that we all participate in society. And I guess they were kind of hippy dippy like that, enough for them to think that maybe that's all it meant. So, I mean, so there isn't that much to go on, and there aren't like a ton of interviews or even a copy of Benson's letter to his friend. We don't really have all that information. We just have snippets of what the family saw or how they felt. And in all of the articles, all of them, it is always described in the same way. And so here's the quote. Here's the quote that is used in part quite a bit, and it comes from a People magazine article on the deaths. Benjamin Starck's brother says the deaths were no accident. Isaac Starck, 39, says family members cleaning out the Starks' home a few days after the grim discovery found a notebook with a letter inside written by Benson Starck to one of his best friends. It was pretty clear that it was a goodbye letter, says Starck. It indicated that Benson was aware that something was going to happen. Benson at least had some idea that he might be found dead someday. He and other distraught family members say that looking back, they now realize that Benjamin, 37, and Christy, 36, were showing signs of mental illness, especially in the weeks before their deaths. They had isolated themselves from neighbors and some of the family, he says, and it had been a while since Ben had been to work. Isaac and another relative, Bob McGee, Jansen's uncle, said that Benjamin and Christy Starck were also exhibiting irrational fear, afraid that something or someone was going to harm them. Their mental illness combined with substance abuse disorder is what led to this tragedy, says Isaac. Some of the changed behaviors before their deaths seemed out of place and didn't make sense at the time. But looking back now, they make sense. And now we want to speak out to prevent other people from having to endure what we are enduring. Extended family members believe that the couple were, quote, victims of their minds, says McGee, with their mental illness caused and made worse by drug use. Benjamin was a heroin user on and off again, and that methadone had actually come from Christy because she was actually prescribed the methadone to help her kick the heroin habit. This one action does not define Ben and Christy that we remember, he says. They were caught in a vicious cycle that many people face in this world. There needs to be a greater sense of dialogue and urgency in our country regarding mental illness. It is simply a disease of the mind, and like any disease, we should work to cure it and prevent it. So that's from the People article. And a lot of what was said at the time was that both of the Starck parents felt like there was a, quote, pending apocalypse. That's in a lot of the articles. And that they wanted to avoid the pending apocalypse. Mm-hmm. To their family members, they thought this meant, moving to Montana and going off the grid, which happens. People do that. They truly wanted to avoid the hate-filled world, and they saw their deaths, as the only recourse. And of course, the drug addiction issues, the obvious mental health issues, they also had some petty crime issues. There were some, there was just some forgery, things like that. Nothing, there was some like stealing, but nothing like felonious, I think. All played into what was the ultimate result. But wait, there's more. This is when the second story comes in. See, like I was like, oh, well, that's a story, and I was doing like, that's a story. That's not a full episode story. So let me give you a little bit of backstory because OMG, there's a lot. Okay, so maybe about 10 years ago, I read a book and thought it was great called Under the Banner of Heaven by John Krakauer. You might know this author from his book Into the Wild, the story of the young man Chris McCandless, who immediately after graduating college in 1991 roamed through the West and Southwest on a crazy vision quest. And in the Mojave Desert, he abandoned his car, stripped it of its license plates, and burned all of his cash. He would give himself a new name, Alexander Supertramp, and unencumbered by money and belongings, he would be free to wallow in the raw and filtered experiences that nature presented. Craving a blank spot on the map, McCandless simply threw the maps away, leaving behind his desperate parents and sister. He vanished into the wild and died in Alaska. The story it was a movie and everything. The book is so great. There are actual pictures that were found. He was eventually found. His body was found, and his journal was discovered. And there were some pictures that were taken that they were able to see his demise in the wild. It's a beautifully written, really good book. Anyway, the book Under the Banner of Heaven was a story about really two things. He investigated and juxtaposed two histories, the origin and the evolution of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the LDS Church, and a modern double murder committed in the name of God by brothers Ron and Dan Lafferty, who subscribed to a fundamentalist version of Mormonism. It's a long story. I mean, it takes up a book. Okay. But I think that Madeline O'Brien, in her amazing deep dive on Medium, described this family and the whole ordeal in the most succinct way. And so she writes, this gives a little bit of history on the Laffertys. Watson, Leroy Lafferty, and Claudine Jones were married on June 6th, 1940 in the Salt Lake LDS Temple. An LDS temple is considered holy amongst the members, as it is a place where sacred ordinances are performed and couples are joined in marriage for what the Mormons call time and all eternity. Together, they raised 8 children, 2 girls, 6 boys, with Ron being the oldest, Alan the youngest, and Dan 6 years younger than Ron. By all outside appearances, the Lafferty family was a tight-knit, obedient, disciplined, and happy. They lived in Provo, the home of BYU, which is also located in Utah County, and they were well known, as Watson Lafferty was a chiropractor with a thriving practice that he ran out of his home. It is said that Watson was a strict disciplinarian who instilled in his children self-sufficiency and the value of hard work. It is also said that Watson planted the seeds of paranoia, rebellion, and fanaticism in his children. He taught them to distrust modern medicine and the federal government. He also took his religious beliefs to the extreme. When one son accidentally shot himself in the stomach with an arrow, he told him he would have to suffer until morning for breaking the Sabbath. Together, the Laffertys would cultivate the family garden, growing fruits and vegetables for the family to eat and preserve. In the LDS faith, boys are encouraged but not required to go on missions at the age of 19, and most do. It is voluntary and self-funded. The Lafferty boys were no exception. In 1960, Ron was called to serve a mission in Florida. After serving faithfully for 2 years, he came home and married Diana and soon had their child, Carol Lee. So when they go on mission, it's those Mormons that you see on bicycles with the white short sleeve shirts and the ties and the button-up shirts and the black pants. That's them being on mission. So Dan was called to serve a mission 6 years later in Scotland, and he was the first person in his family to travel outside of the country. While there, he met his future wife, Matilda, who had 2 daughters from a previous relationship. After spending 2 years in his church mission, Dan and Matilda married in 1977, had a daughter they named Rebecca. Ron was said to be a doting father and a good provider for his family. Dan was also attentive to the 3 girls, and they adored him. Dan went to school to become a chiropractor like his dad, and it was around that time his behavior and beliefs started to change. This was partly spurred on by a set of events that occurred while he was attending college. He and Matilda ran a sandwich shop out of their home. They, along with the girls, prepared the sandwiches, and Dan would sell them to students on campus. It was quite profitable, and they made enough money for the family to live on while Dan was attending school. But it wasn't long before the health department and the IRS cut wind of this endeavor and shut the business down and demanded that taxes be paid on the proceeds from the sales of the sandwiches. This infuriated Dan. It was shortly after this that he became anti-government, revoked his driver's license, and quit paying taxes. He even tried to refuse to pay sales tax, which he wasn't usually successful at. Dan had always strived to be Christ-like, but this desire started to evolve into something else altogether. He was veering away from his religious roots as he felt that the Mormon Church had strayed from the original teachings of the Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith, and the practice of polygamy. He began holding meetings in his home, preaching his disdain for the control he perceived the government had over people, while also speaking out against the Mormon Church for its modern-day teachings. And this weekly meeting included only men, mostly the Lafferty brothers, and it was a church of sorts. They called it the School of Prophets. One person that regularly attended the meetings was the youngest brother, Alan, and he seemed to agree with Dan's new philosophies and ideas, so much so that he began trying to implement these beliefs within his own family. Ron attended these School of Prophet meetings as well, and he became a believer too. One of the ideologies discussed was that women are to stay home with their children and be open to the practice of polygamy. Brenda, Alan's wife, was a strong-willed and educated young woman, and she wasn't open to this proposed lifestyle change. She and Alan met while Brenda attended BYU and Alan attended Utah Technical College. She was a journalism student and a broadcasting anchor for a local university-run channel, KBYU TV. Brenda was born on July 19th, 1960 to parents Lorraine and James Wright. She grew up in Kimberly, Idaho with 5 sisters and 1 brother. They were a close and happy LDS family. Brenda has been described as fun, energetic, bubbly, smart, and driven. She was formerly a beauty scholarship contender where she was crowned second runner-up to Miss Idaho. She was tall, slender, and pretty, and in some of her pictures you can see that she had freckles. She had just recently aspired to write children's books. Alan and Brenda married in the LDS Temple in 1982, and on April 28th, 1983, they welcomed Erica Lane Lafferty into their family. Alan and Brenda decided it would be best for Brenda to stay at home and be a full-time housewife and mother. Grandparents James and Lorraine said of Erica, "Oh, we loved her. She was a joy, a petite little girl, very active. She was learning to speak quickly and would have been walking soon." Ron was considered to be one of the leaders of the School of Prophets group and claimed to receive revelations from God. One revelation claimed that his wife Diana had been the wife of the devil in a previous life. Another revelation was revealed to the School of Prophecy, and it caused a stir amongst its members. Ron called it the revelation of removal. It reads as follows: "Thus saith the Lord unto my servants the prophets, it is my will and commandment that ye remove the following individuals in order that my work might go forward. For they have truly become obstacles in my path, and I will not allow my work to be stopped. First, thy brother's wife, Brenda, and her baby. Then Chloe Lowe, and then Richard Stowe. And it is my will that they be removed in rapid succession, and that an example be made of them, in order that others might see the fate of those who fight against the true saints of God. And it is my will that this matter be taken care of as soon as possible, and I will prepare a way for my instrument to be delivered, and instruction be given unto my servant. And it is my will that they show great care in their duties, for I have raised him up and prepared him for this important work. And is he not like unto my servant Porter Rockwell? And great blessings await him. For I am the Lord thy God, and have control over all things. Be still and know that I am with thee. Even so, amen." So Chloe Lowe and Robert Stowe were neighbors and friends of Ron's and Diana, and he saw them as traitors for providing support to his wife at the time she was questioning Ron's changing beliefs. Robert Stowe also presided over Ron's excommunication from the church because of these beliefs. Porter Rockwell, who was mentioned in the Revelation, was a bodyguard to Mormon church founder and prophet Joseph Smith, and a good friend of his from childhood. So this revelation was rejected by all the members of the School of Prophecy except two of the Lafferty brothers, Watson and Dan. Alan, Brenda's husband, had some involvement in the School of Prophecy at certain times, but it is not clear if he was present at the time this revelation was revealed. However, Alan did concede to knowing about it at a later time. Dan believed his brother Ron did indeed have a revelation and felt it was God's will and would not let anything get in the way of fulfilling it. Ron and Dan broke off with the School of Prophecy due to the lack of support for this revelation of removal. Ron made a veiled threat to the others before leaving the group, causing concern and fear amongst its members. Needless to say, Ron and Dan Lafferty and others went and killed Brenda and her 15-month-old daughter by slitting their throats.
And awful.
So you may be asking yourselves, now how on earth does this have anything to do with the Starck family? Because holy crap, it seems like I just went off on this crazy ass tangent. But it really does.
I mean, I'll be for real. I was thinking that. I was like, where is this going? I think she's too sick. Maybe she took too much medicine, because I don't see where this is going.
It does connect. It really does. Because in January of 2015, just a few months after the double murder and familicide of the Starck family, NBC interviewed Dan Lafferty. And he said his ideas, quote unquote, likely influenced the Starck couple's decision to fatally overdose along with their children. He told the AP that he sees himself as the prophet Elijah and the world as hell, a philosophy that played into the September deaths of Benjamin and Christy Starck. Lafferty's 1984 slayings of his sister-in-law, Brenda, and her 15-month-old were chronicled in John Krakauer's book, Under the Banner of Heaven. So 36 years ago, when this double murder happened, Christy Starck was only 6 years old. She was just a child, but it was in the news. Mm-hmm. So as she got older, Christy Starck reached out to Dan Lafferty's daughter and got in touch with him. So Lafferty, Christy, and her husband became close friends for several years, for like a decade. He's so fond of them, he wanted his remains to go to them. That's how close they were, right? Lafferty communicated with Christy like she was one of his children, but when she suffered about with ovarian cancer, there was talk about Lafferty being able to cure it. It's crazy. So Lafferty now, who's 66, says he first became close to the couple about 10 years ago. So this would have been 2005. After Christy had a dream about him while she was reading the 2003 book Under the Banner of Heaven, and it made her want to reach out to him. And eventually, Christy and Benjamin Starck became almost weekly visitors at the Utah State Prison. Crazy. What? So Lafferty says he and Christy Starck actually fell in love. Something her husband was aware of and did not mind. And at one point, Lafferty cut off his waist-length hair and beard at her request and sent them to the family. And there's a picture of him with that hair and with that beard. So you can imagine all of that going to Christy. Lafferty said he hadn't talked to the couple for years and didn't know of their plans or their mindset. He said he has a self-devised philosophy that he refers to as his insanity. I wonder if that's like for court case reasons. I don't know.
I'm sure.
His insanity, although he said he's not crazy. My insanity messes with people's lives, he said. It's just the way it is. He's very proud of himself.
Just the way it is.
But what he also said was that Christy wouldn't buy into his claim because he believed that he was the prophet Elijah. And she was not buying it. And he wouldn't stop insisting that he was. And so she finally stopped calling because she's like, okay, now you're crazy. Because he was trying to call himself
That's the line.
That was the line, not the killing.
Got it.
Because his brother was the one that killed Brenda, but he was the one that killed the baby. So, but that was the one she fell in love with. All right. So she finally did stop calling him, but the fact that this man and his family were connected at all says so much. She even tried to sneak her brother into the prison, claiming he was her husband. Ew. But she was caught, and that's when she lost her visiting privileges. Ew. Her husband had lost them prior to her due to some criminal activity he was charged with, but just your average upstanding citizens obsessed with the baby killer, you know.
Why were they trying to sneak her brother, and why couldn't he just go in?
As her...
Like, why did she have to pretend it was her husband?
He might have had some issues, too. They didn't get into that. Get into that. But, I mean, would you communicate and visit a convicted killer? I mean, is that something?
Not particularly, no. Especially a baby killer, I don't know.
Right.
And I certainly went and tried to pass my brother off as my husband just so he could also visit said killer.
But one of the things that when I started to do research, that was like kind of some of the trivia I was looking at, like, how easy is it to write and communicate? It's so easy. If you want to communicate with a serial killer or a killer or convicted, whatever, it's easy. All those addresses are easily.
And there's a lot that will respond to people. There's in my true crime Facebook group I'm in, they talk about like how these killers will like detail their whole stories and like their side of stuff and just talk about life like it's nothing, like they're not some crazy convicted serial killer. But that's not I don't personally have a desire to do that.
And that's one of the things that I did some research on the people that do write letters. I mean, I told you that Jason's friend Jason has letters from all kinds of people. Tiger King being one of them. But what that must be like, that you write them, and you write them without judgment. You write them to open up that conversation, and I would just have too much judgment. I'm gonna be judging McJudgerston. You know, I'm not gonna be able to,
especially if it involves children.
Yeah, it's not like a political prisoner in jail or something. I mean, this is like, you killed people. I don't want to be friends with you. I don't want to have that. And so I'm judgy.
I wouldn't want them knowing my address.
You can get a P.O. box.
Yeah, that's a lot of fucking work to write a serial killer.
And that's the line, folks. It's a lot of fucking work to write a serial
P.O. box. Too much for me.
This is just my P.O. box for serial killers to write me.
Can you imagine telling that to the store where you were getting your P.O. box?
You might see a letter from prisoners in here, but don't worry about it. It's good. It's all good.
We have gotten so off topic. I'm sorry.
No. That's okay, because that was the end of my story. I just thought, like, I told you it was not going to be long tonight. I think I stayed true to my word. It's under an hour.
That's crazy that they were connected, and that they were so crazy enough to convince their teenager to do it, and then they also killed their kid. Like, for what?
Yeah,
like, just because of
this.
He told them an apocalypse was coming. Like, the one in jail told them that. Oh,
yeah, and like, well, if you think it's coming, then you kill yourself.
It's kind of interesting that she drew the line at him calling himself a prophet, but then she believed in him enough to believe that there was an apocalypse coming. So much so that she killed her family.
Yep. None of it makes sense. And that her husband was right along there with her. And like, doesn't that make you go, oh my gosh, is my love of true crime and like all of these things one day, it's like my whole family gonna they're all gonna believe what I say. I don't know. Because they went along. Jason would never go visit a convicted killer. Baby killer.
He doesn't even believe in half of the stuff we talk about.
But could you imagine? He'd be like, you want to do what? We need to go to therapy. Because this is not healthy. I would that should have been my question of the week. If you had the chance, would you go visit a killer? And like, no, the answer is no. Huh? Because no, I wouldn't. I mean, I just wouldn't. I don't want to be that close to somebody who's killed people, especially a baby. But I don't know. I bet everyone at home is answering that question right now. But yeah, it's like, where was her husband's brain? I would have been like putting my foot down. I don't know. But she kind of seemed to be the driver of that sort of craziness, and nobody saw it. Nobody saw it coming, and that's painful. And after this training I had today, there were certainly, when they were saying they did not want to be in this evil world anymore, those are some like very clear. Somebody should have said, "What are you planning? What are you thinking? What's going on?" And getting those people help, because those children need not have died. So anyway, so that's my story. You want to do answers to the question of the week?
Yes. Laura said, I crochet and watch true crime. My hubby calls it murder porn, and now I've sucked my kid into it. They love my murder porn and have introduced me into different ones. She says, I also like to watch Botched. Never had plastic surgery, and now I really don't want to.
See, those kinds of things. Like, I'll watch an episode of that. I've never seen it, but now I want to go look it up.
Yeah. Jesse says, I crochet. I also watch Korean and Chinese dramas with subtitles while crocheting. I also watch Twitch, which is gamers playing video games while crocheting because crochet is life. I do watch a lot of Twitch too, but I like to watch other people play video games. I'm weird. Sarah says TikTok, which we've talked about. We send a million videos to each other. Dev says pimple popping videos.
Oh, I do too.
To which Sarah responded and said, "Oh my God, yes, me too. That's what I should have said. They're so bad in the best kind of way. That is disgusting. I'm sorry. I love you both."
Wait, but like, it's so satisfying. It's like, oh, it's clean now.
No.
Oh, this like inch-long worm comes out of something. Ugh.
What I do find satisfying is there's a lot of cleaning videos on TikTok from companies that will go into like an abandoned place or somewhere where they've been evicted or something, and just they'll show the before and after, like the process, and it's amazing. I'm like, damn, I could never do that. Like, I don't even want to get off my couch, but I love watching cleaning videos.
Oh my God, I'm gonna look those up.
Once again, off topic. Oh, they're great. Anyways, those are the answers to the question of the week.
Did you go to
so thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not know that there was on yours. One momento. Just pretend there's like some music here. Watch TikTok while I'm.
Oh, so
okay. I found them. Chastity says, my husband doesn't understand my love of true crime. To which you said, mine either. And then Nicolette, is that how you say? Nikki said, I like paint by numbers, counted cross stitch, reading, and playing with my puppy. Well, those are all very normal.
And lots of drinking in the hot tub. Okay, and then.
Well, she didn't put that, but way to call your friend out.
I know her.
And then Sam says, I play Sudoku. Is that odd? I don't think it's odd.
Sudoku. See? I don't play it. Is that how you pronounce it? It's for smart people.
I say Sudoku. Anyway, so those were the answers from your page. So thank you guys for answering. We post a question of the week on our Facebook page and sometimes Instagram every week. And so we like to read those answers even after we've done the episode. So always feel free to go through and answer them. We absolutely love to read them.
We love you. Yes, yes we do.
Yes.
Please
share us with your friends.
All right, everybody. Well, next week, I hope not to sound like Kathleen Turner in my brain. I hope all of you stay safe. Ashley, how can they find us if they haven't already?
We're on Facebook, which is Case Files with Kat and Ashley. Same thing for Instagram. We have a Case Files Twitter page. I also have Is Tomorrow Home on Twitter. All of the ways. You can just pretty much find us anywhere. You can message us on Facebook. That's probably the fastest way to get a hold of us if you have something. Next week, I will be doing a paranormal story that's also like an unsolved mystery. So that will be fun. Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited. Well, thank you everybody for joining us once again. We love you so much. You are our lives. So until next week, don't get sick. It sucks.
Don't kill your family.
Don't kill your family. And maybe rethink, visiting that serial killer or baby killer in jail. I don't know. Rethink that.
Yeah.
Look at your life's choices.
All
right. We love you guys.
All right. We love you all.
Bye.
Bye.